Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast. Today is Tuesday, November 6, 2018. Big podcast today. A lot of stuff going on. Football, basketball, hockey, college football power rankings and guess the lines, NFL power rankings and guess the lines. College basketball begins tonight. We'll go over some of tonight's big games. I'll pick the doubleheader on ESPN tonight. Some other news and sports I want to get to, as well as some other news and notes. And to football we go. The Titans defeat the Cowboys 28-14 on Monday Night Football. A very impressive win for the Titans, considering that they turned the ball over 3 times in the first quarter. I thought that was pretty impressive. They go to 4-4, and the Cowboys drop to 3-5, and now there's speculation about Jason Garrett's job security. Marcus Mariota, 21 of 29, 240 yards and 2 touchdowns. Dak Prescott, 21 of 31, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. NBA. The Heat defeated the Pistons 120-115 in overtime. An impressive win for the Miami Heat to go to 4-5. Detroit drops to 4-5 after their hot start. Josh Richardson had 27, 8-4. Goran Dragic had 21, 7-6. Bam Adebayo got the start at center. He put up 11 and 8. Hassan Whiteside didn't play due to a right knee injury. Kelly Olynyk off the bench, 13 points, 5 boards, 4 dishes. Dwayne Wade had 18 off the bench. Andre Drummond, 25 points and 24 boards. Blake Griffin, 24 points, 15 boards, 7 assists. Reggie Jackson, 25 points, 4 boards, 6 assists. Glenn Robinson, the third, got a start. He had 16 points. Langston Galloway had 21 off the bench. The Rockets defeat the Pacers 98-94. A nice win for the Houston Rockets to go to 4-5. Indiana drops to 7-4. James Harden clutch shots down the stretch, 28 points. So he's starting to get healthy. Clint Capella at 18 and 10. Victor Oladipo carried the Pacers, 28.6 boards. Boban Bogdanovic had 11 points. Domantas Sabonis off the bench had 17 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists. Tyreek Evans off the bench had 11. The Magic defeated the Cavs 102-100 on a buzzer beater by Evan Fournier to go to 4-6. Cleveland drops to 1-9. Aaron Gordon, 23 points and 9 boards. Fournier had 15, including the buzzer beater. Nikola Vucevic, 14 and 10. Jonathan Simmons had 11 off the bench. Terrence Ross, 15 off the bench. George Hill had 22. C.D. Osman had 11 and 10. Tristan Thompson had 19 and 16. Jordan Clarkson had 14 off the bench, as well as J.R. Smith. The Bulls defeated the Knicks 116-115 in double overtime. This was the ugliest double overtime game I've perhaps ever seen. The Bulls go to 3-8. The Knicks drop to 3-8. Zach LaVine was the best player on the court, 41 points, 4 boards, and 4 assists. Certainly the leader in the clubhouse for most improved player. Wendell Carter Jr., 11 points, 13 boards. Jabari Parker had 15 and 8. Off the bench, Antonio Brown had 17. Alonzo Trier had 21 after a slow start. Damian Dotson had 18. Noah Vonleh had 10. Enes Kanter off the bench, 23 points and 24 boards. That's pretty impressive. Mario Hezonja had 15 off the bench. Emmanuel Mudiay had 16 and 6 boards off the bench. The Thunder defeated the Pelicans 122-116. Bad news for the Thunder in this game is that the Thunder lost Russell Westbrook with a sprained left ankle. It's not as serious as expected, so that's good. OKC goes to 5-4 to win their 5th in a row. New Orleans drops to 4-6. Paul George had 23, 6 and 8. Westbrook had 17, 7 and 9. Steven Adams had 18 and 8. Jeremy Grant had 13 and 6. Patrick Patterson had 10 off the bench. Dennis Schroeder had 22 off the bench. Drew Holiday had 22 points and 14 assists. Anthony Davis had 20 and 8. Nikola Mirotic had 16-16. Julius Randle off the bench, 26 and 8. Ian Clark off the bench. 10 points. The Nuggets feed the Celtics 115-107. A nice win for the Denver Nuggets to go to 9-1. Boston drops to 6-4. Jamal Murray, phenomenal game. 48 points, 5 boards, 4 assists. Gary Harris had 13. Paul Millsap had 10. Trey Lyles off the bench had 13. Kyrie Irving had 31, 5, and 5. Jason Tatum had 15. Al Horford had 12. Jaylen Brown had 15. The Raptors defeated the Jazz 124-111. Impressive win for Toronto. Kawhi Leonard sat out a second straight game due to an ankle injury. They're 10-1. Utah's 4-6. Kyle Lowry had 17, as well as OJ Anunoby. Pascal Siakam had 16-7. Jonas Valanciunas had 11. Serge Ibaka off the bench had 17-5. Fred VanVleet off the bench 17-4-6. Donovan Mitchell sat out this one due to injury. Rudy Gobert had 12 boards and 14 points. Royce O'Neal got the start, had 11. Derek Favors also had 11. Jay Crowder off the bench had 12. Alec Burks off the bench had 22. The Warriors defeated the Grizzlies 117-101. A nice win for the Warriors to go to 10-1. Memphis drops to 5-4. Golden State had to pull away in the third quarter to get this one. Klay Thompson had 27. Stephen Curry had 19, 5, and 7. Durant had 22, 6, and 6. Quentin Cook had 13 off the bench. And the surprise player off the bench in this game was Alfonso McKinney, who had 14 points. Jaren Jackson Jr. had 15 and 6. Garrett Temple had 13. Dylan Brooks off the bench had 18. Shelby Mack off the bench had 15. The Clippers defeated the Timberwolves 120-109. The Clippers improved to 6-4. Minnesota drops to 4-7. Tobias Harris and Danilo Gallinari each had 22. Boban Bogdanovic and Patrick Beverley each had 10. Montrezl Harrell off the bench had 13 and 7. Lou Williams off the bench had 20 with 6 assists. Derrick Rose had 21. Karl-Anthony Towns and Jimmy Butler had 20 each. Andrew Wiggins had 13. Taj Gibson had 15. Only 4 games on tonight's slate you have at 7 o'clock. The Hornets hosting the Hawks, a game that I think Charlotte needs to have. 8:30 on NBA TV, you have the Wizards at the Mavericks. 9 o'clock, you have the Nets at the Suns. And 10 o'clock, you have the Bucks at the Trailblazers. Hockey. Only 5 games on last night's slate. The Bruins defeated the Stars 2-1 in overtime. A nice win for Boston to go to 8-4-2. Dallas drops to 8-5-1. Brad Marchand was the number 1 star of the goal. Number 2 star of the game didn't have a point, just played a good game. Noel Acciari, and the number 3 star of the game with an assist, Torrey Krug. The Habs defeated the Islanders 4-3 in a shootout. A nice win for Montreal to go to 8-4-2. Islanders dropped to 8-4-2. Number 1 star of the game with a goal and assist, Max Domi. Number 2 star of the game with 2 goals, Casey Cizikas, and the number 3 star of the game with a goal and assist, Jonathan Drouin. The Devils defeated the Penguins 5-1. A very nice win for New Jersey to get to 6-5-1. Pittsburgh drops to 6-4-3. Appropriate night to have a hat trick for Brian Boyle, who is the number 1 star of the game. And he does this on a night where hockey has their cancer fight against cancer night. And the number 2 star of the game with a goal and 2 assists was Will Butcher, and the number 3 star of the game with 2 assists, Jean-Sebastian Day. The Capitals defeated the Oilers 4-2. A nice win for Washington to go to 6-4-3 on the year. Edmonton drops to 8-5-1. Number 1 star of the game with 31 saves on 33 shots. Phoenix co-play. It's the backup goaltender for Braden Holtby. Number 2 star of the game with a goal and assist, Devontae Smith-Pelly. And the number 3 star of the game with 2 assists, Travis Boyd. The Flyers defeated the Coyotes 5-2, an impressive win for Philadelphia. They go to 7-7-1 against the hot Arizona team that drops to 7-6. Number 1 star of the game with 2 goals and an assist, Claude Giroux. Number 2 star of the game with 34 saves on 36 shots, backup goaltender, Cal Pickard. And the number 3 star of the game with a goal, Alex Galchenyuk. Bigger slate tonight. You have the Canadiens at the Rangers, the Leafs at the the Knights at the Leafs, Stars Blue Jackets, 7:30 Devils Sens, Canucks Red Wings, and on NBCSN you have the Oilers at the Lightning. I like the Tampa Bay Lightning to win this game on their home ice against a good Oilers team. 8 o'clock you have the Hurricanes and the Blues. 10:30 you have the Ducks and the Kings, and the Wild at the Sharks. Now I'm going to do my college football power rankings. Starting last week, I did a new way of doing this. I go from 25 to 7, and then I go from 1 to 6. That's how the committee does it on Tuesday nights in the college football power rankings for the playoffs. And that's how I'm going to reveal my top 25 for this week. And then I'll quickly run down 26 to 130. All right. At number 25, I have the Spartans of Michigan State. Number 24, the Tigers of Auburn. 23, the Bulldogs of Fresno State. 22, the Cyclones of Iowa State. Number 21, the Hawkeyes of Iowa. Number 20, the Utes of Utah. 19, the Nittany Lions of Penn State. Number 18, the Longhorns of Texas. Number 17, the Eagles of Boston College. Your game day hosts, by the way. 16, the Wolfpack of NC State. 15, the Gators of Florida. 14, the Orange of Syracuse. 13, the Bulldogs of Mississippi State. 12, the Wildcats of Kentucky. 11, the Knights of Central Florida. 10, the Cougars of Washington State. 9, the Buckeyes of Ohio State. 8, the Mountaineers of West Virginia. 7, the Tigers of LSU. Number 1, no doubt about it, the Crimson Tide of Alabama. Number 2, the Tigers of Clemson. 3, the Wolverines of Michigan. 4, the Irish of Notre Dame. Number 5, the Bulldogs of Georgia. And number 6, the Sooners of Oklahoma. So those are my predictions on how the top 25 will shake out tonight. Quickly, I'm going to go through 26 to 130. 26, Utah State. 27, Wisconsin. 28, Washington. 29, Purdue. 30, San Diego State. 31, Texas A&M. 32, Texas Tech. 33, Oklahoma State. 34, Cincinnati. 35, Georgia Tech. 36, Oregon. 37, Boise. 38, Duke. 39, Arizona State. 40, Houston. 41, Buffalo. 42, Temple. 43, Northwestern. 44, USC. 45, Stanford. 46, Arizona. 47, Georgia Southern. 48, Appalachian State. 49, Troy. 50, Missouri. 51, South Carolina. 52, Virginia Tech. 53, Colorado. 54, Pitt. 55, Virginia. 56, Cal. 57, Maryland. 58, Miami. 59, Army. 60, Alabama, Birmingham. 61, Ohio. 62, Ole Miss. 63, Baylor. 64, Florida State. 65, Wake Forest. 66, Middle Tennessee. 67, Louisiana Tech. 68, North Texas. 69, Toledo. 70, Northern Illinois. 71, Nevada. 72, BYU. 73, TCU. 74, SMU. 75, Memphis. 76, Marshall. 77, Florida Atlantic. 78, Tennessee. 79, Kansas State. 80, Tulane. 81, Indiana. 82, South Florida. 83, Nebraska. 84, Vandy. 85, Louisiana Monroe. 86, Coastal Carolina. 87, Arkansas State. 88, UCLA. 89, Arkansas. 90, Oregon State. 91, Western Michigan. 92, Southern Miss. 93, FIU. 94, Illinois. 95, Minnesota. 96, Wyoming. 97, Colorado State. 98, Hawaii. 99, Louisville. 100, Eastern Michigan. 101, New Mexico. 102, Air Force. 103, Akron. 104, Ball State. 105, Louisiana. 106, Charlotte. 107, Miami of Ohio. 108, Liberty. 109, Tulsa. 110, North Carolina. 111, Navy. 112, Kansas. 113, UNLV. 114, UMass. 115, New Mexico State. 116, UTSA. 117, Rutgers. 118, East Carolina. 119, Old Dominion. 120, South Alabama. 121 Texas State, 122 Georgia State, 123 Western Kentucky, 124 Central Michigan, 125 UConn, 126 San Jose State, 127 UTEP, 128 Kent State, 129 Rice, and 130 is Bowling Green. So for once, UTEP is not 130 because they got a win over Rice. All right. That's the lines for Week 11. I can't believe it's Week 11 already in college football. Unbelievable. It begins tonight with Buffalo playing host to Kent State in a little bit of action. I have Buffalo as a 20.5-point favorite as my predicted line, but the actual line is 20. Tomorrow night, more action. You have Ohio at Miami of Ohio minus 12. Ohio is minus 3.5, so that line is very low. Also, tomorrow night, you have Toledo at Northern Illinois. That's a nice one. I have Northern Illinois minus 3.5. They're minus 3. So, 2 out of the 3 picks so far is a half point off. Thursday night, you have Wake Forest at NC State. I have the Wolfpack by 17.5. Wolfpacks by 17. And yet again, at the half line off. Friday night, Louisville at Syracuse. I have Cuse by 18. Cuse is favored by 21.5. Nice one Friday night. Fresno State at Boise State. I have Boise by 6. Fresno's favored by 3. Saturday, Ohio State at Michigan State. I have Ohio State by 10.5. Ohio State's only minus 3.5. Wow. South Carolina at Florida. I have the Gators by 5.5. Gators are favored by 7. Navy at UCF. I have UCF by 21. UCF's favored by 25.5. TCU at West Virginia. I have the Mountaineers by 16.5. They're favored by 13.5. Wisconsin at Penn State. I have the Nittany Lions by 5. Nittany Lions are favored by 8. I think that's too much, but the Wisconsin quarterback Alex Hornibrook is hurt. Ole Miss at Texas A&M. I have the Aggies by 11. They're favored by 12. 1 point off. Akron at Eastern. I have Eastern by 5. I'm talking about Eastern Michigan. And Eastern Michigan's minus 13. I think that's a little big. Tulsa at Memphis. I have Memphis by 10. Memphis is favored by 15.5. That's another line I think that's a little big. SMU at UConn. I have SMU minus 14.5. They're minus 18. Kansas at Kansas State. I have the Wildcats laying 22.5, and they're laying only 12. BYU at UMass. I have BYU minus 9.5. They're minus 13.5. Lafayette and Army doesn't have a line because Lafayette is FCS. Vanderbilt at Missouri. I have Missouri minus 7.5. Missouri's minus 15.5. That's a little big. Illinois at Nebraska. I have Nebraska minus 15.5. They're minus 18. Maryland at Indiana. I have Indiana by 5. Indiana's by 3.5. That's a little small. North Carolina at Duke. I have Duke minus 18.5. They're only minus 10.5. That's small. Troy at Georgia Southern. I have Southern by 7. Can't believe I'm saying this, but it's a pick'em. That's crazy. North Texas at Old Dominion. I have North Texas by 13.5. They're minus 14.5. UCLA at Arizona State. I have Arizona State by 7. They're favored by 12.5. That's a little big. Charlotte at Marshall. I have Marshall minus 16.5. They're minus 14.5. Liberty at Virginia. Virginia minus 25.5. They're minus 23.5. Middle Tennessee at UTEP. I have Middle by 15. Middle's favored by 14. I'm getting close on some of these, huh? Bowling Green at Central Michigan. I have Central Michigan by 3. They're favored by 7.5. That's big. Mississippi State at Alabama. I have the Tide by 24.5. They're favored by 26. Michigan at Rutgers. I have Michigan minus 28.5. Michigan's minus 38.5. Jeez, I didn't think it'd be that big. Oklahoma State at Oklahoma. I have the Sooners by 10.5. Sooners are minus 17.5. I think that's high. Washington State at Colorado. I have the Cougars by 4.5. They're minus 5.5. Kentucky at Tennessee. I have Kentucky minus 8.5. They're minus 3.5. That's small. Northwestern at Iowa. I have Iowa minus 6.5. Iowa's minus 10. I think that's a little big. Baylor at Iowa State. I have the Cyclones by 12.5. They're minus 14.5. New Mexico at Air Force. I have Air Force minus 1. It's Air Force minus 13.5. That's surprising to me. Virginia Tech at Pitt. I have it as a pick'em. Pitt's by 2.5. Purdue at Minnesota. I have Purdue minus 4.5. Purdue's minus 12. That's big. San Jose State at Utah State. I have the Utah State Aggies by 26.5, and they're minus 31. App State at Texas State, I have App State by 18, and they're favored by 21.5. East Carolina at Tulane, I have Tulane minus 12, Tulane's minus 13.5. Western Kentucky at FAU, I have FAU minus 15.5, they're minus 18. Arkansas State at Coastal, I have Arkansas State by 3, they're favored by 6. Georgia State at Louisiana, I have Louisiana by 7, they're minus 14. UL Monroe at South Alabama, I have UL Monroe minus 9.5, they're minus 5.5. Oregon at Utah, I have the Utes by 6. Utes are favored by 3.5. That's small. Auburn at Georgia, I have Georgia by 13.5. Georgia's minus 14.5. That was close there. Miami at Georgia Tech, I have the Yellow Jackets by 3. They're favored by 4. That's close too. FIU at UTSA, I have FIU minus 9. They're minus 10.5. Another close one. Rice at La Tech, I have La Tech by 22.5. They're favored by 25. Temple at Houston, I have Houston minus 5. Houston's minus 4. Another close one. South Florida at Cincinnati, I have Cincinnati minus 7.5. And Cincinnati is laying 12. LSU at Arkansas, I have LSU minus 13.5, and it's minus 13. So a half point off. Florida State at Notre Dame, I have the Irish by 26. They're only laying 18. Texas at Texas Tech, I have the Longhorns by 2, and it's Longhorns by 1.5. So a half point off. Southern Miss at UAB, I have the Blazers by 18.5. They're favored by 11.5. I think that's a little small. Clemson at Boston College, I have the Tigers by 14.5, and they're favored by 18. Oregon State at Stanford, I have Stanford by 20. They're minus 21.5. Cal at USC, I have Trojans by 7. It's Trojans by 5.5. UNLV at San Diego State, I have the Aztecs minus 25, and it's minus 18. Colorado State and Nevada, I have Nevada minus 16.5, and it's minus 13. And that's it for Guest Lines Week 11. I'm actually going to do Guest Lines Week 10 for the NFL before I get into the power rankings because I just have my iPad up, so just do it now. First game is the Panthers at the Steelers on Thursday night. That's a nice one. I have Steelers minus 4.5, and it's Steelers minus 4. Lions at the Bears. I have Bears minus 7. It's Bears minus 6.5. Saints at the Bengals. I have Saints minus 2.5. It's minus 4. Falcons at the Browns, I have Falcons minus 3, it's minus 4. Patriots at the Titans, I have Pats by 8.5, and it's 6.5. Jaguars at the Colts, I have the Colts minus 3, and that was the correct pick. Cardinals at the Chiefs, I have Chiefs minus 16.5, and that's also a correct pick. Bills at the Jets, I have the Jets minus 4, and the Jets are amazingly favored by 7.5. That's too much. Redskins at the Bucks, I have the Bucks by 2.5, and that's what the line is, so 3 correct picks there. Chargers at the Raiders, I have the Chargers minus 6.5, and it's minus 9.5. Dolphins at the Packers, I have the Packers by 7, it's Packers by 9. Seahawks at the Rams, I have the Rams minus 9.5, and it's minus 10. Cowboys at the Eagles, I have the Eagles minus 7, it's Eagles minus 6. Giants at the 49ers, Monday night, I have the 49ers by 3, and that's what the line is. So 4 correct picks there. I'm going to run through the power rankings really quick, and then I'll move on to some other things I want to get into. I'm going to go from 32 to 1 as I do each and every week. 32 is the Oakland Raiders. 31 is the Buffalo Bills. 30 is the New York Football Giants. 29 is the Arizona Cardinals. 28 is the San Francisco 49ers. 27 is the New York Jets. 26 is the Cleveland Browns. 25 is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 24 is the Dallas Cowboys. 23 is the Miami Dolphins. 22 is the Detroit Lions. 21 is the Tennessee Titans. 20 is the Jacksonville Jaguars. 19 is the Washington Redskins. 18 is the Indianapolis Colts. 17 is the Denver Broncos. 16 is the Atlanta Falcons. 15 is the Green Bay Packers. 14 is the Seattle Seahawks. 13 is the Houston Texans. 12 is the Baltimore Ravens. 11 is the Philadelphia Eagles. 10 is the Chicago Bears. 9 is the Cincinnati Bengals. 8 is the Los Angeles Chargers. 7 is the Minnesota Vikings. 6 is the Pittsburgh Steelers. 5 is the Carolina Panthers. 4 is the Kansas City Chiefs. 3 is the Los Angeles Rams. 2 is the New England Patriots. And number 1, the new number 1, is the New Orleans Saints. I want to go over some baseball news real quick. The award finalists were announced last night. The Rookie of the Year finalists in the American League were New York Yankees youngsters Gleyber Torres and Miguel Andujar, and two-way players Shohei Ohtani. I think that these were the correct finalists, and I think the winner is going to be Shohei Ohtani, and my runner-up is Miguel Andujar. National League Rookie of the Year, your finalists are Ronald Acuna, Juan Soto, and Walker Buehler. My pick to win this award is Ronald Acuna. He was a stud. He helped lead the Braves to the National League East title. He's probably going to be the best player from this rookie class down the road. And I think that they got the three finalists correct. As I just mentioned, I think Acuna wins. My runner-up is Juan Soto, who has proven to be the real deal. And I really like Walker Buehler, and I think his future is very bright, and I think he's going to be a popular pick to win the Cy Young next year in the National League. Managers of the Year, American League, I think they have the correct finalists in Boston's Alex Cora, Tampa Bay's Kevin Cash, and Oakland's Bob Melvin. I rarely ever pick a manager of the year of a team or a coach of the year in any other sport of a team that misses the playoffs, but I have to in this case. I think Kevin Cash did a phenomenal job with the Rays in the opener and the lack of talent on that team. There's talent coming, and a lot of talent has emerged in Tampa Bay, such as Blake Snell, and they'll get to him. So Kevin Cash gets my honor with Bob Melvin as a very close runner-up. And I like Alex Cora. I think he did a phenomenal job, and everything he pushed was golden this year. But he did make some mistakes in some of the games, notably World Series Game 3, a couple Astros games, and a few of those Yankee games as well in the postseason. But I do eventually think Cora is going to be a great manager, and I think his talent is what really makes him look phenomenal. Although, like I said, he pushed all the right buttons with the pitching moves and whatnot in the playoffs, and his lineup maneuvers as well. But I just think that Cash and Melvin are more deserving. National League Manager of the Year, I think the panel got these right as well. Atlanta's Brian Snitker, Milwaukee's Craig Counsell, and Colorado's Bud Black. This was a tough call. I originally was going to say Craig Counsell is the winner, but I'm going to go with Brian Snitker. The Braves overachieved this year and took advantage of underachieving Nationals and underachieving Mets and the free-falling Phillies and won the division. And Brian Snitker deserves the credit, and this is certainly going to be a playoff favorite going into 2019 as well, assuming they approve their roster. My runner-up is Craig Counsell for the job he did in Milwaukee. American League Cy Young, the candidates are Justin Verlander, Blake Snell, and Corey Kluber. I think Chris Sale was somewhat snubbed of being a finalist, but I think that his injuries is what cost him as a finalist. My pick to win this award is Blake Snell, who had a career year this year and is going to be the ace of the Rays staff going forward. I thought Sale would be a finalist, but he's not. My runner-up is Justin Verlander, although he faltered a little bit down the stretch and didn't perform well in the playoffs. National League Cy Young, the finalists, I believe the panel got this right. Jacob deGrom, Aaron Nola, and Max Scherzer. My pick to win this award is Jacob deGrom. It should be deGrom's award to lose. I think he will win it. If the Nationals or the Phillies if either of those teams made the playoffs, I'd pick either Nola or Scherzer. But those two pitchers fell apart down the stretch, and Jacob deGrom was invincible and had a microscopic ERA, and he's very deserving of this award. My runner-up is Max Scherzer because he continued to get swings and misses despite a bit of a high ERA in the second half. The American League MVP, the finalists are Mookie Betts, Jose Ramirez, and Mike Trout. I think that Chris Davis and JD Martinez should have been the two finalists to go with Mookie Betts, but whatever. I probably regret not putting Mike Trout in my top three, although the Angels underachieved this year. But my pick to win the award is Mookie Betts. He had the best year of his career. He helped lead the Red Sox to the World Series championship. He led the league in batting average, and he had a lot of home runs and RBIs from the leadoff spot, which is awesome. And my runner-up for him is his own teammate, JD Martinez, who should have been a finalist because he lengthened that Red Sox lineup. He led the league in RBIs and in home runs. Or he was among the league leaders in both. Chris Davis, I think, led in home runs. But Martinez had to have been a finalist, and I think Davis should have been a finalist too for carrying the A's to the wild card game. And the National League MVP, I think, was wide open, but the gap closed in that final week of the season. The candidates, Nolan Arenado, Christian Yelich, and Javier Baez, I think the panel was correct on the three finalists for that award. My pick to win is Christian Yelich. He had the best year of his career. He was red hot, carried the Brewers to a division title, and ultimately to the NLCS, in which they lost in Game 7. Yes, Yelich cooled off in the playoffs, but his performance, certainly at the end of the regular season, was just sensational, and he's deserving of this award. And my runner-up, tough call for my runner-up. I'm going to say Nolan Arenado, because the Rockies went on a great run in the second half, and he was a big part of it. Javier Baez is a close third for me because he played so many different positions, and he had the best year of his career. So he's a bit of a late bloomer, because a lot of people thought he was a bust a few years ago, but he's arrived, and sometimes late bloomers happen. One bit of baseball news I want to hit on real quick is Farhan Zaidi, the GM of the Dodgers, is in play to become the general manager of the San Francisco Giants. If that happens, that'd be crazy for a GM to jump from the Dodgers to their arch rival. But we'll see. I do think this gets done. The Giants, I think, are going to overpay the prime away from Los Angeles, and then Magic Johnson's going to have to search for a new general manager with the Dodgers. Because don't forget, he's the GM not the GM, but the president of the Lakers too, and I think has stake in the Lakers ownership as well. An NFL game was moved in Week 11 from a 1 o'clock game to primetime, and that was the Bears-Vikings game from Soldier Field. I think this is deserving, very deserving of the Bears to get penciled in a primetime game. They're an overachiever this year. Hopefully Khalil Mack's back for that game. That is a signature game for the Bears that I think they have to win down the road to prove themselves that they're a playoff contender, because the Vikings are the team to beat in that division. We'll preview and pick that game on next week's podcast. We'll see how healthy Mack is and how the Vikings look next week. They're on a bye this week. But, how the Bears look this week against the Lions. And the game that got moved back to the 1 o'clock slate for Week 11 was Steelers-Jaguars, and that was a bold move by the NFL, but a move that you can make a case had to be done because the Jaguars have underachieved this year, and the Bears have overachieved. Let's give the Bears some primetime love and get Blake Bortles off of primetime. A surprising firing in the NHL. The Blackhawks have fired Joel Quenneville after a great tenure as the head coach of the Blackhawks. I think this should have happened at the end of last year, but I don't think the Blackhawks had the guts to do it, but now they do it. This is a team that should be heading into a rebuild, and I think they signaled that with this move. They should have done what the Rangers did at last year's trade deadline, which is sell your veterans and get younger. They kind of did that with the trading of Ryan Hartman last year. But I think they should look to move some other players such as Artem Anisimov, Brandon Saad. I think that Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews will be hard to move because of their contracts, and same with Corey Crawford and Duncan Keith. And we'll see what happens with the Hawks. This is going to be an interesting transition. Their window is certainly closed, and I think they're a little late on this move. And I've talked about on this podcast several times how franchises that have won multiple championships in a 10-year span tend to hold on to their core pieces a little too long. The New York Football Giants are a good example of this in football. You started to see it last year, and you're still seeing it this year with them struggling. I believe it's 4-21 in their last 25 games. Los Angeles Kings are another example. They're already on their third coach in 5 years. And Another team that's a good example of this, we'll see if the Zadie hire comes in and see what he potentially could do with the Giants. Do they rebuild or keep that core around that's won 3 championships? So you've seen that in sports where teams are like holding on to teams that have done great things for them a little too long, and players obviously too. College basketball begins tonight. Earlier today, I recorded my predictions podcast on how the season would play out. I'm going to go through the games tonight between ranked teams, and I'll pick the ESPN doubleheader. The first game on the ESPN doubleheader is number 10 Michigan against number 1 Kansas from Bankers Life Fieldhouse in the State Farm Champions Classic in Indianapolis. Kansas is a 4.5-point favorite. I like both of these teams a lot. I think Kansas has the best roster in the country. I think Michigan State has a great chance to get to the Final Four this year. They're the favorites in the Big Ten. I think Kansas wins this game by 7 points. And I think Sparty hangs around a little bit, and then Kansas pulls away and gets the cover late. Number 24, Purdue hosts Fairfield. Fairfield's in the MAAC. So I expect Purdue to take care of business in a bye game. Number 22, Clemson hosts the Citadel. The Citadel is one of the worst teams in college basketball. I believe they are in the SoCon Conference. I expect Clemson to go out and have a good performance tonight. Number 5, Virginia against Towson. Towson is a team from the Colonial Athletic Conference that isn't that terrible. In the 2K Empire Classic campus game, you have number 16 Syracuse hosting Eastern Washington. I'm high on Syracuse this year with Tyus Battle and Buddy Boeheim. A very intriguing game. Number 8 North Carolina at Wofford. This could be an early trap spot for the Tar Heels, but you got to give Roy Williams credit for scheduling this game. I love when Power 5 teams go to mid-major schools and test themselves a little bit, and this is a good test for Carolina. I think Wofford hangs around a little bit. I have Wofford finishing second in the SoCon this year, and I think Carolina pulls away late, courtesy of Nasir Little and Luke May and Cam Johnson and Cody White. Number 6, Tennessee hosts Lenoir Rhine. Lenoir Rhine is a Division II school, I believe. Number 9, Villanova hosts Morgan State. Morgan State's of the MEAC conference. MEAC's one of the worst conferences in the country. I think Villanova is going to destroy Morgan State. Number 19, Michigan hosts Norfolk State. Norfolk State also in the MEAC. This is the Basketball Hall of Fame tip-off campus game. Number 23, LSU hosts Southeastern Louisiana. Southeastern Louisiana is the favorite in the Southland Conference this year. An intriguing game in Tallahassee. Number 17, Florida State hosts Florida. If I had to pick an upset against the spread tonight or a team to win outright, this is it. I think the Gators can go to Tallahassee and win this game outright. Number 11, Auburn hosts South Alabama. South Alabama is from the Sun Belt, as we know. Number 3, Gonzaga hosts Idaho State. Idaho State's from the Big Sky. Number 21, UCLA hosts Fort Wayne. Fort Wayne's from the Summit League. That's a little bit of a tricky spot for the Bruins. They're only a 13-point favorite. And the nightcap of the doubleheader, you have number 2, Kentucky against number 4, Duke, 9:30 on ESPN. Phenomenal games. You have 2 of the most talented teams in the country. I think Duke is going to be poised for this game. They have 3 of the best 4 players on the court in this game, and I think they'll win this game outright as a 2-point underdog. I think they win this game by 4 points. Like a 79-75 type of game. 10:30 on ESPNU, you have number 25 Washington hosting Western Kentucky. This is a bit of a tricky spot. Western Kentucky is the favorite in Conference USA. This is a possible loss, I think, for the Huskies. I really would take a chance and sprinkle a little bit on the money line for Western Kentucky. Number 7, Nevada hosts BYU. Nevada's only a 12-point favorite. I think Nevada is going to win that game going away. And 11 o'clock on the Pac-12 network, you have Oregon hosting Portland State. Number 14, Oregon, I should say. Portland State is from the Big Sky. BYU, obviously, is from the WCC. And some other games of note tonight. I'm just going to skim through the rest of these. Green Bay earlier today defeated Wisconsin Lutheran 110-54. You got to take care of business there if you're Green Bay. Going on right now is St. Francis, Pennsylvania, who some folks think can win the NEC Conference at Buffalo, who's the MAC favorite. St. Francis, Pennsylvania up by 1 with 8:49 left in the first half, by the way, on Buffalo. You have Eastern Michigan hosting Rochester. Morehead State hosting Kentucky Christian. Those are 6 o'clock games. 6:30, you have Chicago State at Indiana. On the Big Ten Network is that game. Another Hall of Fame tip-off tournament game, you have Providence hosting Siena. You have, at 6:30 on Fox Sports 2, Wagner at Seton Hall. The GotPrince.com Legends Classic regional game, you have St. John's hosting Loyola, Maryland. Rider UCF. 7 o'clock games. In terms of the non-ranked teams, you have Milwaukee at Boston College. Wonder if that's a possible bye loss for Boston College without Jerome Robinson. Probably not. Youngstown State at Pitt. UIC at Notre Dame in the Gotham Classic. Mount St. Mary's at NC State. South Carolina Upstate at South Carolina. Presbyterian at Charleston. James Madison hosting Eastern Minot. You have Akron hosting Cedarville, South Florida hosting Alabama A&M, Davidson hosting Cleveland State. I'm very high on that Davidson team, as you can tell from my college basketball predictions podcast. Gardner-Webb at VCU, Marist at Army, Indiana State at Ball State, Fordham hosts New York City College, or I should say City College of New York. An interesting game. You have George Mason hosting Penn. I think Penn can win that game outright on George Mason's floor. You have Stony Brook at George Washington, a part of the Basketball Hall of Fame Tip-Off Campus series. UMass Lowell hosting UMass. You have Bryant at Rhode Island. Central Connecticut State at Hartford. I don't think that's a trap spot for Hartford. I think Hartford wins because it says Hartford minus 9.5 on the point spread line. A fun mid-major game. Florida Gulf Coast at Illinois State. I think Illinois State probably wins that one. Florida A&M at Jacksonville. Colgate at NJIT, a part of the Central New York Hoops Classic. Chattanooga at Charlotte. I think Chattanooga can win that game outright. Detroit Mercy at Western Michigan. Newberry at Dartmouth. East Tennessee at Georgia State. That's a nice one in terms of mid-majors. Hampton hosting Mid-Atlantic Charleston. Longwood hosting Randolph. Radford hosting Davis Elk. Harvard hosting MIT. Old Dominion hosting Navy. Appalachian State hosting Mars Hill. Bowling Green hosting Tiffin. LIU Brooklyn hosting New Rochelle. Central Michigan hosting Concordia from Michigan. VMI hosting Washington College. Furman hosting Bob Jones. Air Force hosting Jonathan and Wales. Abilene Christian hosting Arlington Baptist. New Hampshire hosting Rivier. Northern Kentucky hosting Wilmington, Ohio. Oakland hosting Kalamazoo. SC State hosting Brevard. Holy Cross hosting Sacred Heart. Maryland at 7:30 hosts Delaware. Texas Tech hosts Incarnate Word. Campbell hosts UNC Wilmington. That's an interesting game, by the way. I think Campbell probably wins, but I wouldn't rule out Wilmington there. Temple hosts LaSalle. That's an interesting one. I'm not high on LaSalle this year. I'm not high on Temple either. That's just the one to keep an eye on. Stanford hosting North Alabama. Charleston Southern hosts Columbia International. North Carolina A&T hosting UNC Greensboro. Stephen F. Austin hosts Texas Wesleyan. Sam Houston State hosts East Texas Baptist. Middle Tennessee hosts Lee's McRae. Coastal Carolina hosts Ferrum. East Carolina at 7:45 hosts Delaware State. 8 o'clock games, Minnesota hosts Omaha. Critical spot for Minnesota. Can't start the year with a bye loss. By the way, if you start the year with a bye loss, it's not a good sign. I've seen good teams do it before. I remember a few years ago, Wisconsin dropped the bye game. I believe it was to Northern Illinois or Western Illinois. I think it was Western Illinois. And everybody panicked, and then they ended up, that was Bo Ryan's, the year he quit in the middle of the year, and Greg Gard took over. So that's happened before, but I'm just not a fan of when you lose bye games. I just don't think it has a good look on you. Unless it proves otherwise that the team that you lost to makes the tournament somehow, then the loss doesn't look so bad anymore. Nebraska hosts Mississippi Valley State. Wisconsin hosts Coppin State. Alabama hosts Southern. Missouri hosts Central Arkansas. Iowa State hosts Alabama State. Texas hosts Eastern Illinois. SIU Edwardsville hosts Pacific, and Pacific's favored by 7.5. Northeastern hosts Boston University. Memphis hosts Tennessee Tech. Tulsa hosts Alcorn State. Wichita State hosts Louisiana Tech. That could be a tricky spot for the Shockers. St. Louis hosts Southeast Missouri State. You have Texas Rio Grande Valley hosting Texas A&M Com. You have South Dakota State hosting Grand Canyon. You have Binghamton hosting Cornell. Look out, that could be an upset game. Binghamton's only -1.5. Arizona State hosts Cal State Fullerton. Sun Devils only -12.5. Northern Illinois hosts Rockford. Texas Arlington hosts Texas Tyler. Jackson State hosts UL Monroe. UAB hosts Mercer. UAB only -7.5, by the way. North Dakota hosts Northland. Missouri State hosts Oral Roberts. Mizzou State only -6.5. Northern Iowa hosts Bemidji State. Valparaiso hosts Concordia, Illinois. Nichols hosts MS College. Lamar hosts Hustil. Austin P hosts Oakland City. Lower Marymount hosts Westcliff. Rice hosts St. Leo. North Texas hosts Angelo State. Troy hosts Fort Valley State. Southern Miss hosts Southeast Baptist. 8:15 Lipscomb hosts Sewanee. Louisiana hosts the Virgin Islands. We went over Michigan, Norfolk State already, and LSU, Southeast Louisiana. 8:30 Creighton hosts Western Illinois. Georgetown hosts Maryland Eastern. 8:30 on Fox Sports 2. Xavier hosts IUPUI. Xavier only -18. Manhattan hosts Elon. Elon favored by 1.5, by the way. Monmouth hosts Lehigh. Monmouth by 6.5 is the line. Southern Utah hosts West Coast Baptist. UT Martin hosts Cumberland, Tennessee. 8:45 New Orleans hosts Spring Hill. 9 o'clock Fox Sports 1 Marquette hosts UMBC. Loyola Chicago hosts UMKC. Utah Valley hosts Westminster, Utah. Denver hosts Maine. Montana State hosts Utah State. Oregon State hosts UC Riverside. Northwestern State hosts Centenary. UTEP hosts Texas Perm Basin. 9:30 Vanderbilt hosts Winthrop. Baylor hosts Texas Southern. New Mexico State hosts North Dakota State. Portland hosts Multnomah. UC Davis hosts San Francisco. Davis is only favored by 1.5. Cal State Northridge hosts New Mexico. Stanford hosts Seattle. San Diego hosts Weber State. UC Irvine hosts Idaho. Wyoming hosts UC Santa Barbara. Wyoming favored by 6. I like Santa Barbara to pull off the upset, by the way. That's one of my favorite underdog plays. San Diego State hosts Arkansas's Pine Bluff. Fresno hosts Alaska Anchorage. And last but not least, 11 o'clock, Hall of Fame Classic Campus game. You have USC hosting Robert Morris. One last thing before we go, as we do each and every podcast going forward, the You Can Bank on It bet, this time sponsored by DraftKings. Yesterday, it was a whiff. I got one risk pick right and another lock pick right, which was obviously the Warriors as a lock and the Nuggets as a risk. My other risk one that I got wrong was the New York Knicks. 1 point home loss to the Bulls last night, and then a game that I thought was not really a lock, but one I felt good about, which was the Dallas Cowboys, as they were favored by 5.5. I had them on the money line. My parlays are usually money liners. And the Cowboys failed to win that game. Tonight's a Big 12-teamer. And I'm just going to make my pick right now for college football for tonight. Buffalo hosts Kent State. Buffalo's my pick, and I'm taking them to cover the 20.5. But on the You Can Bank on It play of the night, I have them on the money line. This is an all money line parlay. So Buffalo football Bulls. In the NBA, the Charlotte Hornets. Couple college basketball teams. So you got Providence, Davidson, Syracuse, Purdue, Maryland, St. Louis, Memphis, and Xavier. And in hockey, the New York Rangers. It's a bit of a risky pick, but they host the Canadiens, and the Canadiens are on the second of a back-to-back. Coming off that shootout win over the Islanders, I think we see a little bit of a letdown from Montreal. And in tonight's nationally televised game, the Tampa Bay Lightning, I'm putting in the parlay to knock off the Edmonton Oilers. And by the way, the college teams' opponents are Providence. They're hosting Siena. Davidson's hosting Cleveland State. Syracuse is hosting Eastern Washington. Purdue's hosting Fairfield. Maryland's hosting Delaware. St. Louis is hosting Southeast Missouri State. Memphis is hosting Tennessee Tech. And Xavier is hosting Purdue, Indiana. And that adds up to plus 350. I waged $7.63 on it to a potential payout of $34.34. Long podcast today. We'll be back tomorrow recapping the college basketball, the college football playoff rankings, basketball, hockey, any baseball news that goes down, and anything else that happens in the world of sports. Hope you guys have a great day, everybody.